always butt in.
Oh, good.
Mary Ann has good questions.
I've been thinking the show is, to me, it's like a who's who of the West Coast quilt and intelligentsia.
There's a lot of that. That's right. Julie and Rod and Bill. That's right. I forgot that.
And
I'm
you,
pretty West Coast centric.
and
yeah.
you.
And yeah, oh yeah.
That's okay, because we had the Manhattan Quilt Guilds challenge not long ago, and it was all New Yorkers. So,
Who I was talking to somebody, I don't remember, some quilt person. Did I have a class recently? Oh yeah, I remember when it was. Anyway, last week, and she was from Manhattan, Kansas, and I said, "Oh yeah, I've been there. I saw the Quilters there. You know that play, complete dead, no response, like And she said, "Well, when was that?" Oh, let me see. Oh, 1986.
you know something, Joe, that quilt, you know Megan Barrett, of course, and she's part of the local community theater. And I ordered that script for her some time ago, saying it's time for us to do that at the Iowa Theater.
Yeah.
And hook it in with an, anyway, enough of that.
That was in your bio, and we need to know more about this. This play, right? This quilt play is, I don't remember everything, but it was very fascinating when I read it.
All right.
I'm gonna mute. I'm muting.
Okay. All right. Well, everyone who's joining us right now, we have about 2 more minutes. We have to wait for our noon siren to go off before we can start. Good Iowa tradition.
Oh, right. Tuesday at noon.
Yep. Every day at noon, actually, that siren goes.
Every day at noon. I'm gonna run right now and get some more water here.
Okay.
The town I grew up in had noon, 6 p.m. and 10 p.m.
Oh my gosh.
In Winterset, we used to have the noon whistle. We had 6 a.m., noon, and 1 for the lunch
6
hour.
6 a.m. Wow.
I think so. And 6 p.m. I think.
The factory whistles go off, when the break time was for the employees. Off in the distance, you hear them.
There's Julie Silver.
Yep.
Tomorrow, so I have to get the groceries.
Hey,
yeah, I need to get muted here.
Who are all these people?
Well, we had 117 registrants.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
We're all fans, Joe.
Rod and I have come to harass you, to heckle
Or they
you.
just have a morbid sense of curiosity.
What could this guy possibly have to say?
Yeah, hasn't he said enough?
Over and over and over again.
Oh, I wonder what he's going to talk about this time. All right.
You hear it? All right.
I heard my alarm going off saying, today, right now.
Yep. Don't forget.
Don't forget.
No. Ron, are you on?
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody who is on. So I think we'll get started, and I'll keep admitting people into our waiting room as they come in. I am Carissa Heckathorn. I'm the Iowa Quilt Museum Director, and we are here today to talk to Joe Cunningham. He is our guest curator of our current exhibit, Here Comes the Sun, which is a celebration of orange. We've been having a lot of fun with this exhibit. It's perfect for this time of year. And little bit of housekeeping, actually. We have a chat box, so if you have any questions, please put them in there. This is a very casual discussion. We can interrupt Joe all we want. That's what he told us. So we'll just have fun, and let's see. I think most of you know who Joe is, but he is a quilt artist out of San Francisco, and he has been quilting, Joe, since 1979, I think. Whoops, hold on, let me find you. I accidentally muted you. And I'm gonna
There we
make
go.
you a
Yes,
co-host.
1979. That's right.
There we go. All right. So I think we're good. If you want to go ahead and we'll talk about your art here.
Just go ahead and talk about my art.
Yeah, go for it. Now, let's talk about the current exhibit. So how did
Yeah.
that come about and what was your experience in getting these orange quilts? Because we all know orange is not always a popular color.
Yeah. The first quilt that I bought, I'm trying to remember if it was the first quilt show I was at. It was at the Genesee Valley Mall in Flint, Michigan. I was wandering around and there was a quilt dealer named Pepper Corey, who now lives in North Carolina. And she had,
Oh, geez. I did it to you again, Joe.
all right.
You're right.
And Pepper had a quilt that I liked a lot that was a bow tie, an orange bow tie, and she couldn't sell it. She had rebound it and everything. There was a new binding on there for this quilt, around the turn of the century, like around 1900. And because it was orange, I said, why can't you, why is it so cheap? Well, it was orange. And as I recall, I paid $60, which for a struggling musician at that time was not nothing. I was a guitar player making my living playing in bars. And anyway, I forked over the $60 because I liked it so much. So that was the very first quilt that I ever collected, was the orange bow tie. Is it in the show?
It is in the show, yes. It's right up towards the front. Do you want me to show a picture?
Sure.
Let me see if I can do that here.
All right. That's not it.
This one.
There. That's it.
There.
Yeah, see, she has this sort of gingham. It's gray and reddish gingham that she ran out of. So she worked this other brown plaid in the lower right corner there. It's a simple little quilt. It's not very big. It's maybe, I don't know, 65 inches or so square. But I loved it. I still do. And I've had it in my collection all these years. So I always liked orange. I didn't have any problem with it. But for some reason, and I think it had to do with people's home decoration styles. For some reason, in the 80s especially, orange was not popular. I think in the 80s, a lot of the home deck stuff was like colonial. So you had a lot of red, white, and blue. You had brown and blue. You had a lot of things that fit in with the colonial style, and orange didn't seem to. Whatever reason, you didn't see a lot of it, and people didn't use a lot of orange in the quilts that they made at that time. Most people. I mean, this is a big generalization. I think that changed. I mean, orange quilts have always been made. And in the 1800s, you see plenty of orange. But in the 20th century, it was less and less used there towards the end of the century. And then with modern quilting ideas, like the one behind you, Carissa, has those nice orange pieces in it. And that's been influenced by the modern style. So when modern quilting came along, orange was very welcome because it fit into the whole bunch of colors that of the mid-century modern aesthetic that became so popular. It's so modern that it's 70 years old. Anyway, so orange fit in with the Formica. I mean, with in the 80s, if you went into a quilt shop, or the 90s, or around the year 2000, if you walked into a quilt shop, it would have barnwood on the walls. I guarantee you. And it would have display things made out of barnwood. And that was the whole aesthetic with colonial colors and barnwood.
Yes,
Cream,
country.
you wouldn't have stark white. You would have cream off-white and so on. But with modern quilting, you go into a modern quilt store and it's white Formica and with these bright colors on it. So orange looks much more at home in the modern quilt world.
Mhm.
So when I was asked to put this show together, I hope I'm looking at the camera.
You
Is this
are, you're
right?
doing a good job.
All right.
Yeah.
When I was asked to put this show together by you guys, I just asked a whole bunch of my friends that that I think make great quilts, what they had that was orange, and went through a whole bunch and picked this group of how many are hanging up?
I think we have like 28 total. So 25 are hanging and then there's 3 on our bed turning.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And some people like Pat Pauley, the famous Pat Pauley of Rochester, New York, she made a quilt for the show. That was made specifically for the show. And it's hard to show at your place. It's 9 feet wide. Wow.
Yes. Is that
Yeah.
the organ? That's organ ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Luke Haynes
Oh,
made
yeah.
a quilt for the show. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
They
that.
were all excited. Oh yeah, can I make a new one? Denise Schmidt made one for the show.
Hey, hers is, yeah.
Therese May, I think, made a
think
quilt
she
for the
did.
show. So I was very happy about all of that. I was happy about all of the quilts that got put in the show. It's lovely, and I'm going to get to see it next week, I hope.
You are there.
Yeah.
I mean, and Julie Silver's asking if you guys can see those. So let me see if I can get some of those photos pulled up for you, and then we'll share the screen. But in the meantime, I'll let Joe keep talking here.
All right. Let me see. So Flint, Michigan is where I started. I was born and raised outside of Flint on a dirt road in Swartz Creek, Michigan. And went to school there, high school, and barely graduated. I had to go to summer school to get my diploma.
Oh,
And all I wanted to do was to play rock and roll. I wanted to be a guitar player, So I started playing guitar for a living when I was young. And I did it for years. And it's a long story. But I ended up teaching guitar at a little community college in Western Colorado, Northwestern Community College, and studying English for a year because I wanted to be a writer. Everybody thought I was a guitar player, but deep down inside, I was a writer. All I ever cared about was books and art,
oh, wow.
And so like I would go to, in high school, my art teacher did explain to me that I had no talent for this. So I should just give up the art thing. But it didn't matter because I was an artist with a guitar. And I could read about art. I could read criticism that I didn't have any hope of understanding. Clement
They were
Greenberg and stuff.
wrong. They were
you know?
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, they were wrong.
They forgot about textiles.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I would skip school. One of the reasons for my poor high school performance, I would skip school and drive down to Detroit to go to the Detroit Institute of Arts. That was my favorite skip. Did that a lot. And taking in the paintings there. It's a fantastic museum. So I just kept studying art on my own and studying criticism and theory and going to museums and libraries and stuff. So anyway, all I cared about was English and writing. And so I studied that for a year and got a scholarship to continue on. But the next summer, I went back home to Flint, Michigan, and was making my living that summer playing at night. And one night in June or July, a woman came into the bar and introduced herself to me. She needed a guitar player for some folk music gigs. And her name was Gwen Marston. So Gwen and I started playing gigs around Flint. And over at her house for rehearsals, I saw these boxes full of books, boxes full of quilts. And I asked her if I could see these things. I was really interested in any kind of visual stuff. And they knocked me out. They looked sort of like art,
Yeah.
And I thought quilts were made out of 4-inch squares of polyester with little pieces of yarn at the corner, like my mom made at that time. And she was at that time engaged in documenting another woman's collection, Mary Schaefer's collection. She'd gotten a grant, in fact, to document this collection. And she was loving the process, 350 quilts, more or less, in this huge archive, writing everything down, getting all the information about the quilts, but she was dreading writing the catalog. And here I was, a writer that nobody even knew about. And I offered to write the catalog for her. And she said, well, you'd have to know something about quilts in order to write a catalog about quilts. So this was 1979. And so I said, hey, how about if I read all the available literature, like I had heard people say in college. So I spent that summer reading all 5 or 6 books that there were that had scholarly content on quilts, you know, Ruth Finley, Marie Webster, Dr. Dunton, very few. And so I read all these books about the history of quilts, became fascinated with it. And I, even at that age, I had a real thing for old ladies. So when I met Mary Schaefer, who I thought was a genius, born in 1910 and had been making quilts since before I was born, I just loved her. And I had to interview her to write a short biography for this catalog. So interviewing Mary, studying these quilts, writing about the quilts, I forgot about going back to college. I was a writer, and I got invited by the late, great Carter Houck to write an article for Ladies Circle Patchwork Quilts about Mary. So here I was getting paid to write, and it was quilts.
And how many men were doing this at that time? I mean,
there were a few.
There
were a few. There was Michael James, the famous Michael James, who had already written Quilt Maker's Handbook in 1979, the real high class how to make quilts book. And he wrote a Quilt Maker's Handbook sequel as well around the time that I got started. So he was already long at it. He came at it from an art view, but he was from an art point of view, but he was very knowledgeable about the history of quilts. Jeff Gutchin, the late Jeff Gutchin, he wrote a column every month in the Quilter's newsletter. And so there was a few men that were visible in the quilt making world. And so that gave me the idea. Plus, in one early book that I read by Averill Colby, there was the story of a guy born in 1750 named Joe the Quilter. Joe the Quilter. Are you kidding? Well, who was a professional quilt maker who lived in Northern England. Excuse me. And so I had these ideas that, plus, you know, being a hippie type of person, I was very interested in anything that pushed the boundaries of traditional gender roles and traditional roles of any type for that matter. So I was very interested in it, in the idea of making quilts early on. Plus, it was like making quilts, like making art, but I didn't have to make a commitment to art. Like if I would have had to call myself an artist at that time, I didn't have the guts. I wouldn't do it. I just knew I wasn't. So I had this whole elaborate intellectual foundation for talking about why I wasn't an artist. I'm a quilt maker, and that's different. Quilts and art, they're different. And so I maintained that stance for a long, long time that I was not an artist.
Yeah, until they weren't. I don't know. I think quilts are becoming art now. What I can see.
Yeah, they're having a moment in museums and galleries and stuff. You'd see there's a lot of young people doing alternative things with quilts, and it's having a moment.
It really is. Yeah, and I think we see those artists in this exhibit. You know, with Heidi Parks. She's definitely one, and Luke Hangs, and the young ones that are coming up here, doing different things with quilts. And that's one of the great things about these museums, because it opens up your mind on what a quilt really is, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
Definitely. In my background, I've been more, traditional quilts have been more out there, and that's what I've been a part of. But this is
Yeah.
definitely interesting with the museums because it just gives you a different perspective. We had 2 UPS guys come in recently, and they delivered our next exhibit, and we have these huge black cases. So they both were holding them, and they were just heavy as can be. And when you first come into our shop, it's a gift shop, and then there's these walls, and then you come in, there's another wall, and you go around them and you enter this gallery. And our gallery glows at the moment. So they entered the gallery, and they're carrying this 150-pound case, and they just both stopped, and they go, whoa. And then they started looking, and these are 20-something-old males, and they're like looking at the quilts, and they dropped it, they put it where it needed to go. They didn't drop it. And then they started walking back, and they're like, oh, look at this one, and look at this one. And I mean, it was such a neat experience.
Oh, great.
So like we're saying, I think quilts are having their day, and people are seeing them as more than just bed covers.
I think, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that, I just gave a quilt to my sister and my brother. It's always been an art project for me. So I didn't make quilts for my own sons, for instance. It's always been, this is what I do for work. I make quilts, but this year I finally decided to give a quilt to my sister and my brother. And so I sent them both quilts. My sister called almost hysterical in tears. She couldn't believe it. She was so moved. And then she said she didn't have a big wall to hang this quilt on. And I said, that's all right. It's a blanket. Sleep under it. And she was flabbergasted that I would even suggest such a thing. But that's what I make, blankets. This is what I do. This is what I learned how to do, is to make a human-sized blanket. And so I don't see any conflict between making something that can be used, making a blanket, and making it so that it looks like something that could go into a museum.
Agreed.
That why can't a blanket be look at home on the walls of a museum? Antique quilts have managed it for a long time. Ask Rod Kirikoff. He's had shows in museums. Julie Silber have had quilts in museums, shows, but they're always antique quilts,
Yeah.
And it's harder to get a show of modern quilts in a museum. But that's what I'm trying to do, is to make a blanket that is so artful that it will look at home on the walls of a museum.
Yep. I like that. Exactly. I know I hang quilts on the wall that were made as blankets.
Sure. Well,
Yep.
there's a lot of people that get incensed when people refer to quilts as blankets.
Oh,
But
they
to me,
do.
it is. That's what it is. I mean, there's no shame in it for me. But this is this glorious history that we have, that women created these masterpieces of visual art as blankets.
Yeah.
They're simultaneously at the same time. So why? This is my tradition. This is what I was born into.
You can see some in Julie's picture there with Rod.
Yeah, I can't see them. Yeah.
Can you see them? Okay. Yeah. If you see Julie's background, she's got a grandmother's garden, like flower garden, and a Dresden. Very pretty.
Yeah, she's got the quilts.
Yep,
Yeah.
she's got a quilt in ours. A couple of them, I think like 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Julie and Rod and Bill Volkening, they were the ones I leaned on for antique quilts, and they sent some doozies.
Yes, they did. We can't hear her. I should probably unmute Julie real quick. Hold on, find you. Here, you can I've asked to unmute. It won't let me unmute you. Maybe that's. I'm sorry, Julie.
Maybe because it's a
Now
webinar.
you're unmuted.
There she
Oh, there
is.
you are.
I'm here with Rod in my little shop. Hi, Joe. Hi,
Hi,
everybody.
Rod. Hi, Julie.
We came to heckle you.
Oh, I wish you were here in Palm Springs.
I wish I were too.
So do I, but I wasn't
See?
invited.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, right.
No, I had your invitation all written out, and then I just ran across it on my desk recently. And I thought, oh no, I forgot to invite Rod. I forgot to send. I mean, it's right there. I'll show it to you when I get back to town.
Yeah, right.
The Dear Rod, it says. Oh,
So
hi everybody. Look at those
We'd like to
beautiful
see
quilts.
the
Is there
quilt.
any orange?
we'd like to see the quilts
Yes,
that
let's
you're
do that.
talking about.
Okay.
Let's let me real quick pull up some of the vintage ones. I won't be able to get all of them up, but we can get through some of these. So people can see those too. And then I have some of the other ones that Joe had mentioned pulled up. So hopefully I don't miss all of these. Let's see. Oh, we need to pull up that crazy quilt. Okay, and then this one. No, yeah, well, we can pull that one. And where did the vulcaning ones go? They're gorgeous. There's one. Okay. Let me get my screen shared here, and then we'll show some of these. All right.
Oh boy, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of Bill Volkening's from the Mountain Mist collection. Mountain Mist used to print patterns on the piece of paper packaging that was rolled around their quilt bats. When you bought a cotton quilt bat, you would get, I wonder about the polyester bats. They might even had those on there. But anyway, and this one, I forget the name of this.
The New York Beauty.
Oh, this is called the New York Beauty.
Mhm.
So I knew it was a variation of that. New York Beauty. And it's obvious why I requested the use of this one for a show about orange.
If you can see that quilting, I mean, it's just, and it's hand quilted. I mean, it's just absolutely stunning. This
Yeah,
quilt is
it's
stunning.
a Rocky Road or Crown of Thorns were those original names. That's right. Yeah, this is a standard issue quilt. This is it's a very, very nice one. And but this is the way designers of quilts in the 20th century created them to be totally perfectly engineered, like a quilt kit, So there's no asymmetries here. It's completely symmetrical all the way around. You'll notice that's one of the first hallmarks of a 20th century quilt is the ideal was to have it, all four corners are exactly the same, for instance. Everything is exactly the same all the way throughout. And that's so that the quilting designs, it's a design called teacup. And you'll notice those teacups are exactly the right size to fit in those spaces and so on. Everything has to be symmetrical and exactly alike. That's why that's what 20th century designers did to quilts. In the 19th century, symmetry was not as required as it became in the 20th century. So this is from 1930s, I think, right?
Yes, I believe so. 1930s, 40s.
Mm-hmm. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, this is one of Julie's, I
Oh.
believe.
So Julie Silber has an amazing ability to find quilts that are rich and wacky at the same time. And this fits that mold. This is somebody's idea. Is this a 20th century quilt? Does anybody know the date on this? It looks like it to me.
It's a Lone Star.
Pardon me?
It says
it's a
the
Lone
name
Star.
of it's Lone Star. Mhm.
Oh, yes, that's right. And so Lone Stars have these triangle and square vacancies that need to be filled. And this woman filled them with the orange and blue stripes that almost overshadow that explosive star. Like, what could you do to compete with that star? Oh, I know, these big stripes. It's incredible that these two things are fighting with each other.
Yeah, it's
I
pretty
love
cool.
that quilt.
It's so unique. Yeah. Here's one.
Oh, This is another quilt collected by Julie Silber and in her collection. So crazy quilts made in the last quarter of the 1800s, the 19th century, generally are made out of wool and silk, and they have embroidery along all the seams. And this one has that. But then in the middle, excuse me, of each one of these blocks, there's this, I don't know, it looks like a rattlesnake hide or something made out of orange, red, and green triangles that sort of rattles along there in the middle of each one of these blocks. And the angle of the diagonal at which each one of these is laid in the blocks is not consistent. The angle is different, so that it was crazy enough without that. And then you add that, and then you add the different skewed angles of all of those things. And it's just one of the most, what do I want to say? It's like an intricate and fascinating quilts I've ever seen.
And the embroidery on it is perfection.
Perfection, that's right.
There's
You
an
know, people
embroidery.
lots of times they'll see a quilt like this and they'll say, oh, well, she was just doing the best she could. She was just throwing things together the best way she knew how. And that's, pardon my French, that's bullshit. This is a woman who is supremely competent and technically able to accomplish this. This is not a beginner's quilt. This is somebody that was very confidently putting things together. This is an artist at work right there.
All right, here's one.
That looks like it came from Rod Kirikoff.
It did. It's a brick wall.
It's a brick wall. Very often you'll see brick walls hung with the bricks going sideways, the way bricks go. I like to see this one hung this way with this stripe down the middle of orange. These two stripes, this sort of a swath of orange down the middle. It's a 20th century quilt, probably from the 40s. I forget the technical
70s, I want to
information.
say, right? Roderick?
Pardon me?
I think it's 70s.
Yeah,
70s.
It's polyester.
Oh, vintage polyester from the 40s.
Right. And
It's
flannel.
from the flannel.
Mhm.
Polyester and flannel.
Yeah.
From the 70s. Oh my goodness. So this is somebody that's relaxed about her quilt making and just enjoying the process. I love the way there's these courses of these bricks. If you that are these, since it's like this, they're vertical. These vertical swaths on the maybe it was made for a love-in, says Marianne. These swaths on the right and left, and then all these vertical swaths. It doesn't really mirror from right to left in any way, but it has this structure where most of the fabrics are the same. Oh, there we go. Where most of the fabrics in each row are the same two fabrics. Not all of them, most of them. I like it.
Very cool.
Therese May.
Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
Therese May, there's nobody like her. How big is this quilt?
Oh, geez, I wish I could remember. It's big.
It's huge. And she made this for the show. Was so excited about it. Oh my goodness. Therese, we all come at quilt making or quilt collecting from different places, and her place has to do with her whole spiritual journey. And she puts out things every day, it seems like, and on Facebook and Instagram. And so there's these animals. I believe this is a cat.
Mhm.
What do you know the name of this one?
Cat eyes.
Cat eyes, yeah.
Mhm.
And
I got a great anecdote on this, Joe, because it's called cat face.
Cat
Oh, that's
fix.
right.
And the Iowa Quilt Museum on the second floor, which is this big wide open space, the yoga class meets there. And so I go to yoga class. And there's a pressed tin ceiling. It's the original ceiling. It's a cream colored pressed tin ceiling there. And so we lie on our backs. And so Mindy, one of the yoga gals, months ago, she says, does anybody see a cat face in the ceiling? You know, it just looks like an angry kitty, you know, and we're like, well, yeah, kind of, because it looks like it has the whiskers and all. So when this show went up, I'm like, Mindy, when you, after relaxation, you got to go look at this quilt called Cat Face. Because, and so it's just an irony.
Yeah, oh, that's funny.
There, but it's amazing quilt.
It is.
Amazing. Yeah.
I love it. It's quilted.
Therese May, one of the real greats of this era of quilting. Luke Haynes made this. Luke came at quilts from a purely artistic point of view. He was in architectural school and left it to become a quilt maker. And Luke, so I came at it from this whole historical angle, wanting to replicate old quilts. Luke came at it wanting to use quilts to make art. And he's gradually learned a lot more about old quilts. He's much more knowledgeable now than when he started in the early 2000s. And he's doing such interesting stuff. So here's this antique orange and white grandmother's flower garden that's just fabulous, that somebody cut a chunk out of. And then he adds this 3D looking, that's not three-dimensional in real life, looking like this draped fabric on top of it. It's like denim. That's just so, that turns the quilt itself into a background while simultaneously making it a work of art. It's like he's collaborating with this original quilt maker. And I love this. I love what he's doing.
Yeah, it makes people stop.
I'll bet.
Yeah. Here is the first one we were talking about.
Oh, it's called Oregon Rain.
Yes.
This is the great Pat Pauley. I can't say enough about her abilities and her artistic competence. So Pat is a dyer and printer of fabric, and she is the least fussy dyer and printer you will ever meet. She just goes about it with such a sure hand. And so she makes all these fabrics. They all started out as white cotton, and she has dyed and printed all of these, and then cut them up and put them together to create this image, which is, like I say, 9 feet wide, I think. She made this for the show. And once she got it done, she was concerned that there might not be enough orange in it. But I told her, yes, that's enough orange.
She's got a good amount in there. Yeah.
Yeah, you meet the requirements. Technically, her quilts are generally, they're not complicated, you know, rectangles and squares. But the freedom with which she puts these things together is awesome. It's awesome.
It is. I really like it. And the fact that she printed she dyed that fabric. That's amazing.
Yeah, go to her website. Anybody that's out there wants to know about Pat, because she sells her fabrics online.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's great stuff to work with. Yeah.
Let's see. I think that was it. Let me ask. Now we have some other quilts of Joe's. So why don't I pull some of those up? We'll pull up the ones you have in our show.
Okay.
So here's
This one. One day, I stepped out of my studio, which is in a kind of it's not a super gnarly part of San Francisco, but it's gnarly. And anyway, there on the sidewalk, or it was on the electrical box panel along the sidewalk, the telephone stuff, was this book called 100 Art Masterpieces and How They Were Made, or something like that. And I opened this book, and I picked it up and opened it, and there it opened right up to Van Gogh's chair in his bedroom in Arles. And this was in 1920, in the summer of 1920, where, if you recall, if you cast your mind back, then in March, when we had the lockdown, we all thought, okay, all right, we got this. Well, what if we have to be locked down for 2 weeks or 3 weeks even? We got this. We're going to be all right. All right. We can do this. We're Americans, man. And then April, and still locked down in May. So by the summer
Right.
was when it was starting to sink in on me. Oh, this is my new reality. And the political world was in such an uproar. This was at the height of the campaigning for the presidential election, for the elections of that year. And everything just seemed so chaotic and insane that I wanted to rest. So I thought, oh, I could make a chair and rest on that. That'll keep me distracted for a while. So I pieced together this chair. The background is a big piece of fabric that I get fabric from this textile training center in Ghana. It's imported by a company in Fort Bragg, California, called Anansi Village, A-N-A-N-S-E. Anansi, that's the African spider god, village. And you can find them at anansivillage.com. And they sell this magnificent fabric. So I bought this chunk of it and made it do this sort of reddish donut there, and pieced the quilt in there. I pieced the grid on top of it, above the chair there in, and then I pieced a bunch of craziness over there on the left, and then added all of the bias tape, the little short pieces, and then this swirly thing that the arrow is on right now. So you can see the original dyed fabric has those swirly whitish lines, light green, throughout it, from the resist of the dyeing process. So that's what this is. It's called Rest. And that was how and why I made it.
Oh, I love it. This is a great quilt.
Oh, thanks.
So much texture and movement in it.
The quilting is it's an aerial photograph shot out of an airplane window of an Iowa farmscape in the winter. The dimensions of Rest are about 72 by 73 or something like that.
Yep.
The name of the artist for Oregon Rain is Pat Pauley, P-A-U-L-Y.
Oh, just
Pat
one.
Pauley. Look her up online.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. We have 36 views here coming up. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I first got a digital camera, one of the first batch of photographs that I made was I took a few hundred pictures of the tar patches on the highway. Everywhere that I went all over the country, when the pavement cracks and the county sends around a repair crew with a 3 or 4 inch tar brush, and they paint the tar over the crack to keep it from cracking anymore. I call it tar patches. I took a lot of tar patches, and I wanted to print them out with my inkjet printer and do something with them. And they resisted being printed out on an inkjet printer. They did just fine, but it was not real black, like tar is so supremely black. So I met a woman named Barbara Zerby, and who runs an embroidery business and also is interested in quilts in San Francisco. And Barbara offered to embroider these tar patches for me. So I sent her a whole bunch of files, and I've made 2 quilts with these tar patches. So this quilt I made after a trip to Flint, Michigan, and I was thinking about my hometown, and I was thinking about driving to Flint. And of course, in Michigan, you'll see lots of these kind of tar patches. And I was thinking about Hirosigi and Hokusai, who would do these pictures, do these series of pictures called 35 views of Mount Edo, 36 views of Mount Fuji on the road to Edo, and so on. And so this is called 36 views on the way to Flint, I think. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
36 views.
Now that makes,
And,
now I know why.
So the striped fabric is hand printed from India, and then the other fabrics are African and African. And why I chose those fabrics was because I liked the way they looked. That's all. And I don't even know how to explain this quilt, but there it is. 36 views on the way to Flint.
Love
It's
it.
about 72 inches square.
Awesome. I think your fabric, this one up in the upper corner looks like cracked pavement, but
It does.
yeah.
It does. Yeah.
Let's see. We did bow tie. I don't have the star one up. So here we have, let me just read some of these. There are people who would like to see all the quilts in the show. So Joe, which way do you want to go? Do you want to, should we look at a couple more of yours and then we'll see if we can pull up some more from the show?
Oh, I'm happy to just look at quilts from the show.
Okay. Okay, bear with
I don't know
me.
how we're doing. We only have 15 minutes left.
Yes, so please send your, any comments or questions that you have are much appreciated. Let's see here. See me think here.
Mhm.
This is Mary Ann Fons. I'm a board member at the Iowa Quilt Museum. And as we talked about in the first place, Joe is scheduled to arrive in Iowa. He's going to pop over to the Midwest next week on the 18th and going to be in person at the Iowa Quilt Museum for a gallery walk at 4 o'clock and then with a reception 5:30, 6:30. And of course, we're all, have to think about how we can travel and whether we can travel and so forth. But if you're in driving distance of Winterset and want to come join us, it would be great. It's got a big tall ceiling. You can wear a mask. We
Yeah.
can keep, it's a large area. If we had even 25 or 30 guests, we could spread out quite easily. So, the opportunity to see Joe in person and have him talk about these quilts and touch them and share information about them would be great. So think about it. So that event is on the 19th of January. So
Yes, at 4
take a look.
o'clock.
Yes. And I believe it's free. It's free.
Gallery walk is 10, reception is at 5 o'clock and that is free.
Yeah. Gallery walk, it just costs about a little bit more than what admission is $8. So it's just a little bit extra.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's
Mm.
a lot of
Oh.
quilts. So we did talk about a few of these the other day when we had Heidi and Sherry and Sarah with us.
Mhm.
Might not go as much into depth of those, but let's get some of these others pulled up.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
And here's Sunstar. And then
Mm.
the same one.
Oh.
Okay, that's it. All right,
Oh,
so.
so this quilt right there with the big hole in it, the stains all over it. Oh my goodness. So a great friend of mine, James Tomlinson, has moved to San Francisco. James is a drummer and we played in many bands together in Flint and were roommates at different times, did small tours together. And then we went our own ways. He became a stockbroker and did all different kinds of things. And he's recently landed in the Bay Area. and I love the chance to get together with him. So when I told him that I was doing this, I was curating this show with orange quilts, he said, "Oh, my grandmother made me a quilt. Now it's just a rag. It got used up by somebody. I wonder who." Excuse me. And I said, "Oh, I'd love to see it. Anything that your grandmother made for you." So he was born in 1954, and he thinks this was made in 1954 for him. His grandmother was from Missouri. And he showed it to me, and I was just knocked out. She was such a top quality quilt maker. And I love this pattern and the purity of the orange and the white and the purity of that zigzag border. Yeah, it's a rag, but it has its own glory that just would not quit for me. I love this quilt.
We have it in a display case because of its condition.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it is quite pretty. It's very striking.
Yeah. This one's by Sheila Frampton Cooper. I don't know the name of it.
I have blanked on the name of it. It's pretty small too.
Yeah. So Sheila, she works very improvisationally. I've heard students of hers talking about how it was hard to believe how free she was allowing them to be, and they loved it. She's a brilliant quilt maker, I think, and is works like an abstract expressionist painter. You know, she works very intuitively, and I love the freedom. This to me looks like a kind of a CAT scan.
So she also gets the form of a body, people have said.
Uh-huh.
And it's got very detailed, I mean, the quilting on it is like
Yeah.
tiny, and it's very well done. And I believe it's free motion on a machine, but
Yeah.
it just makes the movement of it.
Yeah.
Really. It's very striking. Also,
Yeah.
let's see, here's a vintage one.
This one came from the marvelous Julie Silber, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Loaned it to me. Julie Silber didn't make it. This is made in the 1800s, right around the last part of the 1800s, I think. I can't remember all the information on these quilts, but it looks to me like it's the last. Wow! Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, there's just so when I talk about how 20th century designers designed things to be so completely symmetrical, and the 19th century designers were not so concerned with symmetry, then just for instance, if you look at the lower left-hand corner, yeah, and you can see there's an extra orange triangle right under your arrow there.
Yeah.
No,
Oh.
I mean, so in the blue triangle, that's the lower left corner of the blue of the main body. See that? Yeah. And right beside it, there's another one. There's an extra white triangle. Yeah. And if you look around, that doesn't occur anyplace else in the quilt. This is the kind of asymmetry that was a feature, not a bug, of the 19th century quilt makers. Also, if you look across the top row, just the very top
Those
row
should
of the
be blue.
border, I mean, of the main body of the quilt, you can see they all just get chopped off when they get there. They all just got chopped off. And that's also a feature of 19th century quilts that you don't see in quilts that are designed by 20th century quilt designers. And it's that sort of asymmetries that to me give a quilt life and reiterate the fact that it's made by hand, by a person. It's not made by a robot, you know, an engineer. Yeah.
And without rotary cutters. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Cutting all those out.
Yeah. Oh, this is the Heidi Parks quilt. This is, she lives in Milwaukee. Heidi went to art school at the Chicago Art Institute And her stuff is unparalleled in its simultaneous. This is small for a blanket, but however, it's a real quilt and it's a real piece of art. And she was concerned that it might not be dark enough orange. I said, orange is orange. There's lots of shades of it. And so I was very happy to get this for the show. It's not that big, 36 or 40 inches, 40.
Yeah, it's small, and I told her, I think that it was perfect because we didn't have any other quilt in this color orange, in the soft orange. And
Yeah.
soft orange has a completely different meaning than all the other oranges that we have in the show. It's more
Yes.
of a healing and peaceful orange, which we don't really go to orange for that. But
No,
it
that's
exists.
right. That's right. Heidi uses almost all recycled fabrics. She does a lot of mending
And dye.
uses and dyeing. Yeah,
Mhm. And
beautiful.
natural dye. She used turmeric and avocado, and yeah.
Yeah, so good. Oh, this is my great friend, Mike Mcnamara from San Francisco, originally from Massachusetts, from Boston, or however you say it. This is a quilt. It's for something for an Ohio poet.
Mhm. Yep.
Mac makes quilts for people, for specific people, full of specific imagery that applies to that person. And they're like poems about the recipient, the eventual recipient of this quilt, of his quilts. And this is how he works. He uses a lot of traditional blocks, and he is so free. This is a very old quilt. I think it's about 20 years old or so. And but his style it's a little freer than this, even the stuff that he does today. But all of his quilts, right in the middle, you can see there's a car tire, a green tire right in the middle of the quilt, above that red variable star. His dad owned a tire shop, so he collects fabric with tires in it, and he always puts a picture of a tire in his quilts.
I love that.
Mike Mcnamara, great quilt maker.
Yeah, he gave us the poem too. The poem that this was inspired by.
Oh, great.
He was inspired by the poem. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Oh, man. Sarah Nishiora is from Detroit and lives now in Chicago for a long time with her husband. And Sarah, her aesthetic is, her quilts often have a real monumental feel. They feel much larger than they are. I mean, this is not huge. What is it, 72 or something?
Or 80 something. Yeah, it's one of the bigger ones, but yeah,
It's big, but it feels, is there an exhibit catalog or a book to purchase? No, I should write a book about orange quilts.
there is. We have an exhibit catalog. Yeah, that'll have all the other
Great.
information.
So
Mhm.
can they find out about it on the website?
Oh, on our shop link, it should be online.
Oh, good.
They can go to the gift shop store. Mhm.
So,
And I can put a link up on social media too afterwards.
okay. Sarah Nishiora works by hand a lot and uses a lot of recycled fabric. And her work is just very often, it's monumental, and it's a real quilt, and it's quilted by hand, and I just love it. I love, look at the way this one is made. It's so subtle. The northwest and southeast quadrants are set on the straight.
Yeah.
The northeast and the southwest quadrants are set on the diagonal. And you don't even notice that at first, but it's that kind of stuff that she does that's really quiet and brilliant, and I love her work.
And she was inspired by postage stamp quilts.
Yeah. We got 2 minutes. This is guess what this quilt's called? Pineapples were a symbol of hospitality in colonial America, supposedly, I have read. And this one is from, I can't remember whose it is at this point.
Barbara or Julie? Is it yours, Julie? I don't remember. Yeah.
Julie's quilt.
Oops, sorry.
Yes.
Rushed through a
There we
little.
go. This one is from Sujata Shah of San Jose. Sujata makes uses a lot of solid colors and very influenced by the Gee's Bend quilters and her aesthetic.
No, I think
Really
that was
nice.
called The Beach, if I remember correctly.
Called the
Beach.
Beach.
I think so.
I guess this is kind of West Coast, isn't it? This is Alice
Yeah.
Beasley from Oakland. I love that zipper in the hair.
And it's called I Try to Keep an Open Mind. And you got to know the title because that's the zipper. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, that one's very, yeah, it's a great quilt.
This one Margaret Fabrizio made for the show using the Kawandi techniques, the techniques of the Indian, the West Coast Indian quilters, the Seedy peoples. She's a fantastic quilt maker in the traditional style and in her own style, and now in the Kawandi style. And this one is obviously a takeoff from a Gee's Bend quilt that she was inspired by. And I just think that it's absolute dynamite. I was thrilled that she made this for the show. Are you kidding? Oh, Rosie Lee Tompkins, not
That's what it
Gee's
was.
Bend. This is by
It should
Rosie
be
Lee
true.
Tompkins. It's inspired by a Rosie Lee Tompkins quilt. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Oh, geez. Sherry Lynn Wood, one of the great quilt makers of our era, lives now in Cincinnati, Ohio. And this is an old one of hers, huh? Using once again,
99.
found materials, very big stitch quilted.
Yep.
Oh, on an Afghan, hilarious. It's from the Bill Volkening collection of mountain mist patterns, jack-o'-lantern. You know, this is the only known example of this pattern, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, nobody's ever seen another one.
It's a very neat pattern, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Love it. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. All right, got to pull this one up. Yeah.
Oh, Katie
It's this
Pasquini,
way.
masochist, who lives in Northern California. Katie does paintings and then makes a quilt of her painting, and sometimes includes some of the painting in the quilt.
She included,
Uh,
that's that square right there is her painting.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
then the quilt is a magnified version of all or part of that. Katie's technique is so extraordinarily intricate and assured at this point in her career. She's been making quilts since the same time that I have,
Oh, wow.
and she makes my quilts look like child's play. Technically, what she can do, she's as free with fabric as she is with a paintbrush.
Her quilting is just amazing.
Yeah,
also.
it's astounding.
Yeah.
This I borrowed from Julie Silber. And I'm going to avoid making any jokes about it whatsoever. This is Julie learned something that I didn't know in doing research about this pattern, that the donkeys did not always represent the Democratic Party. That before donkeys, it was a rooster, I think,
Yes.
that signified the party. And then I can't remember the year or the guy's
I don't
name.
remember it either.
Yeah. But I
But
love this.
that's called, and it's called Gallop. And it's a little one.
Yeah, it's cute.
It is cute.
Oh boy. From Rod Kirikoff, I think,
Yes.
loaned us this one. It's a grandmother's flower garden with some of the craziest things. I mean, look at those big red sections and the orange section along the bottom of made up of all the same hexagons. The solid pieces made out of hexagons, it just knocks me flat. The whole thing, the whole composition here is so inexplicable that you just keep looking and looking and looking. I love the shelf-like freehand fans, the freehand quilting that goes right across the color design. Most grandmother's flower garden quilts are quilted around each individual piece. And this is so much cooler, I think.
And they're big hexagons,
Yeah,
not your little ones that you typically.
that's right.
And it's the only one with orange and hot pink.
Yeah. And this one, I think, is also from Rod, right?
Yes.
You know, there's innumerable variations with the fan design. And I love the way this one is put together in such a way that the 4 fans that are crammed together, but that are pointing away from each other. And then they work with other fans around the lattice strips to create the image of circles. And then in the second row from the bottom, you can see the ones on the right and the left, the second, that are pointing, that don't, this whole row doesn't exactly line up the way you think it should.
Yeah.
Right?
Cool. Yes, it's very
It's so,
interesting.
yeah.
You
I
want to go
love
back
that.
and ask what they were, what they were thinking, like
Yeah, they were having fun,
process.
but yeah, we don't know what they were thinking. That's right.
No. And that's a 70s also.
Yeah. Rod's a specialist in 20th century quilts. He's has a magnificent collection.
Yeah, well, those are all the quilts in our exhibit, and I think we're running out of time.
Yes.
Yes. Are there any last minute questions for Joe or for us? This exhibit's on until January 23rd. And we do have an exhibit catalog, so I can share that in our email to you once we get this video taken care of and downloaded and then uploaded to YouTube. And yeah, so I think that's all we have on. And like Marianne said, we have a gallery walk on the 19th for anyone who's nearby. And then on Tuesday next week, we have Bill Volkening and Roderick Karakoff, who are going to talk to us more about collecting quilts. So, because they both have some great quilts in our exhibit that are part of their collection. And Julie, if you want to join us, you're more than welcome to do that.
I was going to add, Joe, when we reached out to you to see if you would be interested in creating this exhibit, we had no idea about your love affair with orange.
Yeah, I've always really liked it for some reason. I don't know why exactly, but yeah, I loved it. And at first I was reluctant. I'm not a curator. I don't have any experience at curating, oh, come on, please don't make me do this. And I'm so happy that you made me do it.
Oh, good. Well, we're happy you did it, because I got to admit, I wasn't too sure what to expect on an orange exhibit, but
yeah,
it's very nice.
yeah, good.
We're really enjoying this one. And so do the people who are coming in and looking at it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, well, thanks. And yeah, thanks to Joe for curating this show for us. And we really appreciate your time today. He's actually on vacation, so he came, he interrupted that. He missed a whole hike.
That's right.
Share these quilts with us. So we really appreciate that.
The pleasure is all mine. I'll see you next week.
All right. Well, Joe, we'll see you next week.
Yep.
Awesome.
See you then.
Bye,
All right.
everybody.
Bye-bye.